Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that Fulton versus Foster is very close to being announced, very close to becoming a reality on the undercard of Davis versus Roach 2 that is shaping up to be an all-right card. There is the intrigue of the main event, but also intrigue here with Fulton and Foster. The reason for it, Stephen Fulton ascended from the super bantamweight division up to feather, but he didn't stay at feather very long. He didn't. His maiden fight at the weight, he didn't look too hot, he didn't look too good. He won a split decision against Carlos Castro, though not before getting dropped. Not before getting rocked a couple of times. He survived that fight, and he was very fortunate to do it, and then he fought his old buddy Brandon Figueroa right after that. The same Brandon Figueroa that he beat at Super Bantam, he then beat again at Feather. But when that's all we have to go off of, and when that's your biggest fight at Feather, your biggest win, effectively becoming a two-weight world champion, it was by beating a guy that you already beat, a guy that you already know. Now, you can give him credit, but you have to mitigate how much, since it's familiar territory. Now, if he can go up to a third weight and beat Usyk Foster, I think that says more about Stephen. I think that if he wins that fight, pound-for-pound talks are in order, as that would be the third, arguably the fourth world champion he would have beaten across three divisions. Remember, he beat a then unbeaten Angelo Leo for the WBO, that was at 122, then Brandon for the WBC, that was also at 122. He subsequently did it again at 126. Now, if he goes up to 130 and he beats Usyk, there will be a very credible argument for him to crack the pound-for-pound list. If he wins, though like I said, I don't know if he can. There's just not a lot to go off of from his very short stint at 122 to now be moving up to 130. Has he outgrown the weight already? Stephen was not a hard puncher at 122, much less at 126. What is he going to be at 130? So his body may be urging him to move up in weight yet again, but what if any power is going to carry up there with him? Now, what we know about Usyk Foster, well, he dealt with a hard-punching Rocky Hernandez. He beat him. The multi-weight champion Ray Vargas decided to move up in weight, like Stephen is deciding to move up in weight, fought Usyk. He beat him. Usyk beat him. He beat Robson Conceição, a standout amateur, and a tough out for anybody at the weight. Usyk beat him. Now he's fighting Stephen. In tandem with what usually happens when top-ranked fighters meet PBC fighters, usually the top-ranked fighter wins. That's how it usually goes. Now, the caveat is this is going to be a PBC show. Remember, this is going to be on the undercard of Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach. So, Usyk has to make it clear. He has to make it emphatic. I'll go as far as saying he needs to knock Stephen out. Oh, yeah. You don't think the PBC would love to stick it to a top-ranked guy when they've got home field advantage for what is their house fighter? I think that Usyk needs to knock his block off. I think he needs to stop him to prevent any funny business from going down. Bitch. It's a good fight. I would have preferred a unification match for Usyk, but I'll take this. It's intriguing. They're both boxers, Usyk and Stephen. Both cerebral. I wonder who else is going to be on this undercard. Fight's a little bit tough to edge, I won't lie. I feel like you can give Usyk the edge in many departments, but he is at a disadvantage because it is a PBC show after all. If you don't stop Stephen, there's room for all sorts of funny business. The PBC are not above the shenanigans, not above the chicanery. We've seen it many times before. Oshaki, you gotta stop this guy. I saw content creator Two-Tone, a superstar, react to the news by saying that the PBC is the promotional company of the year. That doesn't mean much from a digital shoplifter. Another Twitter account that goes by the name Pound for Pound said, they said PBC was dead. No, what they said was that Fox would give them the boot, which they did, and Showtime would follow. Showtime would give them the boot, which they also did. You're still mad about it even though it turned out to be true and the PBC are doing less shows, much less than they used to, much less fight dates. You want to pretend you don't notice? So you can feel like you were right about something? Well, Forster versus Fulton is a good fight, but let's not get carried away. And a lot of these guys that are acting excited ain't gonna pay for it. I would be surprised if Two-Tone buys the fight. I'd be surprised if this pound-for-pound person buys it. Because talking about it online don't make nobody no money. Talking about it online don't put no money in nobody's pocket. And it can't be all that great a show if you don't pay to see it. Are you gonna pay to see it? Another extension of the token tribalism you see in the American boxing scene. Let's not kid ourselves. Their affiliation to Al Heyman, their affinity, has everything to do with the color of his skin. Well, that's fine for you, but the rest of the world don't care. That's what you're mad about. Men's heavyweight news ahead of this weekend's Queensberry show. Substitute Justice Huni is ready to spoil the Ipswich party with Fabio Wardley victory. Justice Huni sits in one of the racing-style bucket seats in the Ipswich town dugout and surveys Portman Road as if he was about to make a tactical change in a home fixture against Leicester City. It's nice, this place, he tells the Ring, while scanning the pitch in the spring sunshine. I feel like it's important that I got here and got a feel for it before fight night. A few weeks ago, the 26-year-old from Queensland, Australia, had never heard of Ipswich, the largest town in the county of Suffolk, much less its football team, but he did know the name Flavio Wardley. He knew, therefore, what beating the undefeated puncher from this neck of the woods on June 7th could do for his career, and it felt like a risk worth taking. No matter what he did so on, only a few weeks' notice following the withdrawal of the injured Jarrell Miller, or that he will have to attempt to beat Wardley here at Portman Road, which is very much the 30-year-old's own backyard. I just feel like it's meant to be right now, Huni adds. I'm number one in the WBO, he's number one in the WBA, so I think our paths were going to cross at some point anyway. So this feels like the perfect time. Huni! I got my reservations about this fight even now during fight week, when it's just a few days away, because Justice is a very different fighter to the fighters that Flavio has fought so far. Good wins over David Adilier and Frazier Clark, but at their very best, those were domestic-level fighters not proven at world level, and that's not really saying that Justice is. But I rate Justice Huni's win over South Africa's Kevin Lerena higher than I rate Flavio's win over David Adilier, over Frazier Clark. Why? Well, that's the same Kevin Lerena that dropped Daniel Dubois 3 times. That's the same Kevin Lerena that almost stopped him. He didn't do any of that to Justice Huni. And what is Kevin Lerena? An awkward fighter, a southpaw, and a hard puncher. Hard enough. He dropped Daniel 3 times, didn't drop Justice. Huni! This is a homecoming fight, but this is also my coming out party. It's massive for the both of us, and we are both looking to take the win home, but I know deep down I'm gonna cause a huge upset here in his hometown. As soon as we got the call, I said, let's go. I put my head down, got to work, really dug deep for 5 weeks to do my job. It's an easy decision for me. If I didn't take this fight, I would never know when another opportunity like this would come around. I could have been sitting around fighting in Australia for who knows how long before another chance. It has taken a 26-year-old just 12 professional fights to reach that number 1 spot with the WBO, while the WBA currently also have him within their top 10. It was clear that he was going to be matched hard and moved early from the off. With the 13-1-1 Australian heavyweight Faiga Opalu brought in his debut, which was scheduled for 10, Huni just 21, 1 inside 7. What does any of that mean? That means that Justice Huni is talented. That means they moved him fast, based on his ability. Huni! He's barely put a foot wrong since, with 9 further 10-rounders during his run to 12-0, 7 KOs, and although he is 4 years Wardley's junior and has had 7 fewer fights on paper, he's actually had 16 more professional rounds than his opponent. In fact, when it comes to boxing experience, Huni and Wardley are night and day.
Oh, so?
Much was made of Wardley's lack of pedigree during his 2-fight series with Frazier Clark, a longtime amateur boxer who spent years in the GB boxing setup and eventually competed at the Olympics. But in Huni, former white-collar man Wardley is set up against someone who can barely remember a life before boxing. When I was still crawling, I was in a boxing gym, watching my dad and older brother, he recalls. My dad used to train him, so it was natural that I followed as soon as I could walk, really. I actually had my first fight when I was 7, but in Australia, you're not allowed to box until you're 10, so I was doing it under the radar and faking my age. So I had my first official fight on my 10th birthday. I'll never forget it. It was like my little birthday present. Thankfully I won, so it didn't ruin my day. In contrast, Wardley was a latecomer to boxing, and famously never spent any time as an amateur, instead cutting his teeth during a short stint on the white-collar circuit before turning pro in 2017. In boxing terms, their backgrounds could not be more different. Huni has the amateur background that Flavio doesn't have, but then again, so did Frazier Clark, and we see what Flavio did to him.
He Fraziered his Clark, all right.
So is he gonna justice his Huni this weekend? Well, Justice Huni is a different fighter to Frazier Clark. He's mobile, he's agile, he's got speed on the inside, combinations, not that big on power.
But he makes up for it in other areas.
Look, Huni says, credit where credit is due. He's done all the hard fights as a professional and overcome all those challenges. I could sit here and go back and forth about how I've had all this amateur experience and he hasn't, but he's proved himself in the pros. The debate could go on forever, but luckily, there is one way of settling it, and that's in the ring, June 7th. A few weeks before Huni's arrival at Portman Road for the launch press conference, Miller had sat in the exact same seat, ranting and raving about what he was going to do to Flavio. The pair were even separated by Securita as Miller slapped his opponent round the face. Late substitute Huni is far quieter, but will still assume his role as the villain of the piece on the night at the home of Ipswich Town Football Club. He smiles at the suggestion. I'm not really into soccer or football at all, so I don't know anything about them, he says. A few of my mates are, and they know Ipswich and said they had just been relegated. That means me turning up will be a double disappointment for them. It's going to be massive, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just here to embrace it all, take it all in. I won't let a crowd change the way I come out here to do my job. I've been in this sport too long to let other people get to me or let a crowd booing me take over how I perform. I'm going to stay focused, tunnel vision, stick to the job in hand, and bring home the win. Huni certainly has the right mindset, the right attitude. He seems to be relishing this opportunity. He sees something in Flavio that he can exploit.
What?
Only he knows that, but need I remind you of the hometown curse, how hometown fights, homecoming fights, have a bad habit of going sideways for the hometown fighter.
Like I said, he's a very different guy to the guys that Fabio has been fighting.
I feel like Justice has seen more guys like Fabio than Fabio has seen guys like Justice. That's how I feel. Justice has been in there with a hard puncher before. He was in there with Kevin Lorena.
He can punch.
He's in there with a cerebral guy, a mover, a jabber, and Andrew Tabiti.
Now he's about to fight Fabio. And what is Fabio's homecoming fight? And I don't know what it is about these homecoming fights. Maybe they distract the fighters?
Paying attention to the wrong things or are too determined to put on a show for the hometown crowd? Why they consistently go sideways? Your guess is as good as mine. But it's enough for me to go with Justice Huni this weekend. I'm gonna go with a ballsy pick, and I think I'm gonna go with Justice Huni to stop Fabio.
What?
See the bridge of Fabio Wardley's nose? That thing's been split open a couple of times. There's a noticeable scar there, scar tissue. Justice might stop him uncut.
I ain't gonna ride the fence like a little bitch. Gonna go with Justice.
I think it's a perfect timing. They're both on top. On top with great wins. Usyk obviously pound for pound the best fighter in the world. I think it's a great challenge. The first one was a little controversy. There was a little bit of controversy with the body shot and stuff like that. That we all disputed, and everybody has a different opinion. I think it's gonna be a very competitive fight. I think Dubois is in a great moment right now. I think Dubois is a big guy. He's gonna go out there and put pressure and try to dominate with his physical strength. And Usyk, obviously great boxer, great counter puncher, very great speeds and technique, but he does get affected when we see pressure on him, when we see body shots on him. So I think Dubois is going to put on a great fight.
Well, if Daniel is all of a sudden a different fighter, then by that reckoning, he should be able to put on a different performance. A better one. A better version of what he did the first time out.
The rematch draws closer. With it, this becomes more and more of a talking point. What are we going to see when these two boys fight again?
I see so many people saying the same thing, that Daniel is different and that Daniel has changed. I'm not convinced. I just think he's more confident now, but he's going to go in there and fight the exact same fight with more confidence.
And that does make a difference. Being more confident, you'll try harder, sooner.
The caveat being, the sooner you try to empty the tank, the sooner the tank is empty. In tandem with Usyk's penchant for wearing out his opponents, you don't notice it at first, but he gradually drains their energy reserves by keeping them moving and keeping them working to where before you know it, as the later rounds roll around, they ain't got nothing left, and the punches got more sting on them. The counters.
You don't take them as well.
If you've been with this channel a long while now, you will have heard me say this a million times over, that rematches are often won by the fighter who can change, the fighter who can adjust. Now, many people feel that Daniel has changed based on what they saw in the Miller fight, the Joshua fight,
and the Hrgovic fight. But I myself did not see anything dramatically different or better from Daniel.
Those were just different guys, different opponents that don't present the same challenges as Usyk, and I by no stretch of the imagination think that Usyk is unbeatable.
No one is.
He's really pushing it, sticking around, and fighting this guy for a second time. But if any one of these two fighters is more capable of taking what they learned from the first fight and applying it to the second, well, I think it's Usyk. I mean, look at what he did to Fury the first time out.
Ragdolling Fury in the first fight was very dramatic, but I happen to think he beat him even more comprehensively in the second fight.
Even though he didn't stun him like he did in the first one, even though he didn't ragdoll him, I think he won a more decisive victory in the second one than in the first.
I think it could be that way with Daniel.
And if what Daniel's got in his head is he's gonna go in there and steamroll the guy, look for the knockout, the trade-off is, you go looking for a knockout, you run the risk of being knocked out. You were already knocked out by this guy before.
Now, on the off chance that Daniel does the unthinkable, and he actually wins this thing, he avenges the loss from the first fight, well, then I see a trilogy.
As they would be, in that scenario, 1-1 with each other, the trilogy would be the tie-breaker, if Daniel actually does win the rematch. What I noticed is that Usyk was just as receptive to a rematch with Daniel as Daniel was to a rematch with Usyk. He didn't shy away from it. He's just as confident as Daniel that he can get the job done.
If he were so worried about Daniel's power and the shots to the body, whatever it is, I don't think he would have signed up for seconds.
It's obvious what Daniel wants. Daniel wants revenge. Daniel wants undisputed. Usyk,
He's already been undisputed, and he already beat Daniel, that if he's taking this fight on, it's gotta be because he's supremely confident he can do it again. He can beat him again.
so I mean, I'm giving the edge to Usyk.